Hi, Game Master Brian, and welcome to Step 6. Now, you remember last episode, we had ourselves a little conundrum, and that was we were talking about that we're only going to look at the physical world, while at the same time, we were saying that the physical world is in a constant state of change. So how do you fit those two things together? How do you measure something that's constantly moving? And the answer to that was that we were going to marry change with process. So let's take a look at that equation that we looked at with last step. Change plus process gives us truth in the moment. Okay, so let's define the word process. And this is the way the game defines it. The act of accommodating change for the purpose of determining truth in the moment and managing human systems. So process has two responsibilities: determining truth as it is in the here and now, as well as managing our human systems, making sure they function properly. All right, well, now the last step, so we talked about moments, the definition of a moment in last step. This step, we're going to focus on the concept of process. And in the game Lingua Galaxiae, there are two main processes that are associated with discovery. The discovery of evidence, really super important part of thinking. The first is the steps of discovery. The second is the tests of discovery. And today, we're going to take a look at the 4 steps of discovery. And we're going to define those 4 steps in this way. The 4 steps of discovery are: construct an affirmative statement, collect relevant data, analyze data, adjust affirmative statement in step 1 to conform with the new data analysis in step 3. Now, most of you would have already seen this in science class, so this shouldn't inherently be new to you. If it is new, don't worry about it. We're going to use it so many times in the upcoming months that it's going to become secondary to you as we move along. But if you think that you've recognized this from science class, you're probably correct. And that's exactly what I'm hoping for. Now, I'm going to work through the 4 steps of discovery using an idea that is very near and dear to my heart. Now, I've been ridiculed often in public for holding this position, but as I share the details with you, I think I may very well pull you around to my position. Now, the statement we're going to use today, the thing that we're going to prove using the 4 steps of discovery is this: pigs can fly. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Pigs can, in fact, fly, and I'm going to use the 4 steps of discovery to prove that today. All right. Now, we know already, it is an unquestionable scientific fact, that if a pig goes from Farmer John's farm and goes to live in the woods, they undergo a fundamental metamorphosis. Now, by the way, Metamorphosis is a great short story by a guy by the name of Franz Kafka. Look it up. It's really cool, especially if you like bugs. But we're not talking about bugs today. Today we're talking about pigs. And the fact is that if a pig goes from the farm to the woods, they do amazing physical transformation. So let's take a look at a few photos. This is a picture of a pig, on an average pig, on a farm in the United States today. And you see the pig is well fed, is well educated, and slightly nearsighted. Now, this is the same picture. The following picture is the same pig who went for a walk in the woods. That's pretty startling, right? Notice the big gnarly tusks that have grown out of the mouth of the in the woods pig. Now we're going to call that the feral pig. Not like Will Ferrell, completely different. All right, so based on this already observable and understood scientific fact that pigs go through this dramatic transformation when they go from domesticated to feral status, if a pig can grow a tusk, then why can't it grow wings if it goes into a different kind of environment? You tell me I'm wrong? Bet you can't. Now, we're going to add to this. Let's not forget all the examples of flying pigs in our culture. Lewis Carroll, Through the Looking Glass, gives us the following poem, The Walrus and the Carpenter. "The time has come," the walrus said, to talk of many things, like shoes and ships and sealing wax and cabbages and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot and whether pigs have wings. That's right, Lewis Carroll. Now let's not forget Ruth Thompson's series of Oz books, which were later made into a series for HBO. And in there is a character called Pegasus, right on the cover of the book here. John Steinbeck, the amazing and American author, used a symbol of Pegasus, and he stamped it on all of his private correspondence. Evidence is starting to mount up here, isn't it? And finally, let's not forget about Pink Floyd's Pigs on the Wing album. All right, you're starting to feel a little foolish with yourself, aren't you? Now we can put in that we got Muppets, Pigs in Space. There's the Simpsons episode where Lisa's the vegetarian, where there's a pig that flies. And let's not forget the disquieting examples of police brutality against pigs who've done nothing more in life than desire to fly. Now, let's go back and look at my initial affirmative statement. Pigs can fly. What about pigs that fly first class? That throws a wrench into the whole thing, right? So what we have to do is modify our initial statement. So now instead of pigs can fly, which would include pigs that fly first class, we now can say pigs can fly using their wings. Congratulations, step one of discovery is complete. All right, now let's move on to step two. How do you start this process? You know, the job now is to collect all the relevant data that relate to the question of can pigs fly? Well, one thing that you might do, if we were investigating what's in a liquid, it'd be a very simple thing. We would take that liquid to a laboratory, and the laboratory would test the liquid and then give us an official printout. You know, it's their stamp of official approval that these test results are accurate. But we're not dealing with a liquid that could be sent to a lab, so we need to do something else. If we were investigating a bank that is laundering money for drug cartels, you know, those duffel bags of cash have got to get funneled through the system somehow. You can't go down to 7-Eleven and take care of a couple $1 million in 20s that you've got here in your duffel bag. The banks are involved in money laundering in order for the drug cartels to be in existence. No, you can't take the two away. Anyway, I'm going aside here. So you might start with, if you're looking at a bank for bank laundering, you might look at public banking records. You might look at press releases. You might look for a government investigation. But that's not quite the deal we got here with flying pigs, so I don't know if those are going to work. But the point here is that if you're going to collect evidence, that evidence has to be authoritative. And the way we're defining authoritative in the game is the evidence has to be something called primary or primary evidence. So let's go ahead and define that. Primary evidence or primary source. Evidence that is original and not secondary. Examples of primary source evidence includes first-hand testimony from reputable witnesses, test results from government agencies and independent laboratories, research from academic experts, testimony from professional experts. You need to make sure that the evidence that you're using to prove your point is authoritative. Okay, so let's get back to my particular example of pigs flying, and let's apply what I've just said to this issue. So what might I look for? Well, I certainly could look for press reports of flying pigs. But remember, a press report is not a primary source, but it can be used by an investigator to find primary sources. So news articles could be a good first step in your process. Just make sure you don't end up relying on them. Now, in my situation, there aren't too many press reports out there or government reports or anything like that talking about flying pigs. So I might want to look elsewhere. And one way to do that is to look for organizations having to do with the subject that you're trying to investigate. They can be local, state, international. And here's some examples of organizations that we might find if we're looking for information on flying pigs. The Armenian Order of Flying Pigs, the International Federation of Flying Pigs, Friends of Flying Pigs, the Association for the Advancement of Flying Pigs, and Flying Pigs Institute. Now, honestly, I'm not really sure whether or not those agencies actually exist, but they might, and so you want to get on the Google and look for them. Okay, now let's remember that this is not an exercise in only looking for information that serves my statement. So my job as an investigator isn't just to go out and find evidence that pigs can fly. I also need to look for evidence that is of a contrary nature, that contradicts my statement. So where might I go? Well, there are a lot of people that know a lot about pigs that probably don't believe they know how to fly. For instance, a farmer. Farmer knows a lot about pigs, but probably, maybe, that farmer has never actually witnessed any of his or her pigs flying. So you want to go ahead and take a look at as many farmers as you can. There might be an academic who has a degree in oncology, who's an absolute expert on pigs. So you can go to that source. Maybe there's an academic journal, the American Journal of Oncology, and you can go to that journal or similar journals to find information about flying pigs. Okay, so what we've done now is we've gone out and we've collected all the available information, both supporting and detracting from our statement. And the next step is it's now time to analyze all that information. Okay, about analysis. The number one rule of the first three rules of analysis are organization, organization, organization. It's all about getting yourself organized. Okay, so what that means is if you've got a big pile of data there, you've got to figure out ways to organize it in terms of, you might first by splitting the information up into two camps, one that supports your thesis and one that does not support your thesis. That's one way to begin. And then you go into your analysis of things that support your thesis, and then you split them up by type of support. You want to get yourself organized. Now that you've got yourself organized, now you can actually engage in the act of analysis. Does this information support my original statement that pigs can fly? In my particular case, have I been successful in going out and collecting a preponderance or an overwhelming amount of evidence to support my case? Okay, now again, remember, this is all about bringing all the information together, which requires integrity of process, something we're going to talk a lot about throughout this game. If you engage in the 4 steps of discovery and you do it without integrity, you're wasting your time, unless you're a hustler and you're just trying to put together a convincing lie. But if you're going to use the 4 steps of discovery, you've got to do it with integrity if you want to have a quality result. Okay, here's our essay prompt. Can the 4 steps of discovery be used to prove the statement, pigs can fly using their wings? Can you prove that it's true using the 4 steps of discovery? Give me a paragraph. It's got to be more than 25 words, so you're going to have to get yourself a little bit organized in order to respond. But there's your step for the day, and we'll see you tomorrow at step 7.